Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Knit Yorker, and I have a very special guest with me today. Today, I have Ira from KukieKnits joining me. I'm so excited to have her. She's in Australia, I'm in New York, so it's crazy different times, but we made it, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think this is the first time I do a guest for real, so you're opening it. And so before we get into our topic, I wanted Ira to tell me what she's wearing and what are you making.
I'm wearing the Feldspar tee by Hannah Lubin.
It's so cute. Is it cotton?
Yes, it's knit in We Are the Knitters. They're 10-ply cotton. I don't know what the exact name of it is, in the colorway olive. And it's like a really simple, no front, no back, boat neck t-shirt, because of course we're going into warmer weather here. I'm currently knitting on this Brooklyn tweed pattern called Koto by Olga Buraya Kefelian. And it's a high-low hem, like, I don't know how to describe it. A lot of short rows, and I'm doing the sleeves at the moment, but I ended up having to change the pattern to do the sleeve top down. It's done bottom up and seamed on, but I don't know if I have enough yarn, so I'm having to do the math myself, which I hate doing.
Plus, who wants to do it bottom? Bottom.
Yeah, and it's seamed on when it's like it doesn't have anything funky on the end. So I don't know why it's done that way, but yeah, that's what I'm working on.
It looks great. I love the color of that one. It has like tweed in it.
It does. It's New Zealand yarn, I think, called Skeins with NZ. Haha. And it's in the tweed, and I think it's their limited edition color called Wisteria.
Love it.
Thanks.
Awesome.
And you are more prepared than I am because I don't remember what I'm wearing. I mean, I remember that I made it, but I did not actually prepare.
Okay, cool.
So I am wearing, this is a pattern called Eowyn. I think it's Eowyn, like Lord of the Rings, literally. Eowyn blouse by Fable Knitwear. It's like a cute little blouse. I don't even know if you can see it, but yeah, the best part are like the sleeves that have this cute little ruffle. And I made it with, I think this was yarn that I got in Rhinebeck, actually, maybe 2 years ago. I got it for a different project, and I ended up frogging it and using it for this. I think it was Primrose Yarn Co. Yeah, which the 2 times I've been to Rhinebeck, I always get that yarn, so it's now like tradition. And I'm working on a new project, well, new-ish. Let's see if I can show. It's also kind of like a t-shirt. I don't know. It looks tiny, but it's very stretchy. There you go. And this one, I don't know how people remember all the names of the patterns. Like people that are just saying them off the top of their head. I know, like you probably looked before you you said it, but I cannot remember. I can barely remember my own patterns. Like, oh, this one's easy. It's the Luna tee.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like it's like a ribbed, like a nice rib, cool. I feel like I'm making this thinking that I can wear it to work now that I have to go to work in person more. And I'm using a Pearl Soho Sweetgrass, which I think it's a mixture of, it's not wool, it's cotton and alpaca. So hopefully it holds the shape. Like, but it's looking good so far. And I'm excited to wear it. There's a lot of reasons why I invited Ira today. One, because she's awesome and I love her channel and I love everything she does. She's like a super prolific knitter. I don't know if you want to say something about yourself.
I knit a lot. I tend to have quite a bit of free time in the evening. I have a kind of job that I can't do from home. So when I'm at home, I'm mostly just knitting. I don't have kids. I have lots of free time. I think obsessed is the word most people use.
Obsessed?
Obsessed with knitting. So yeah, I mean, I am a fast-ish knitter, but I think it's more that I get a lot of time to knit. Proficiency-wise. So what's the word? Proficiency-wise.
Professional. That's
No,
what you
like
are. You're
prolific.
professional.
What's the word?
Prolific.
Yeah,
Prolific,
prolificness-wise, I think it's more that I get time.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need, right? I feel like people ask me all the time, like, but when do you have time? I'm like, I don't have time.
I just when I am sitting, that's
Yeah.
when I knit, and
Yeah, I think
Like-
people think that, I make separate time out of my day to knit, but I don't. Like, I knit on the train to work. I knit when I'm watching TV. I always say, how many hours do you watch TV? Like, in the evening. That's when I knit.
great.
I think that's just our personalities. But one of the reasons I invited you is because I think we are like-minded in some things, not just knitting, but also organizing, I could say, especially when I saw you were posting about like your Ravelry and even your friends' Ravelry organizing. which I love.
Like organizing just my hobbies. The rest of the stuff in the house, don't ask me what anything is. But like I can pinpoint where my hobby stuff is.
Like the things you actually care about. Like the things. But yeah, so I thought it would be interesting to talk about a controversial topic, if you may, which I mean, it's not that controversial for the knitters, maybe, but talking about the stash. And even, like, the name stash, it makes it sound so, like...
I hate it.
Sometimes. Yeah, like, can we call it something else?
Images of you, like, squirreling your yarn, like, you're, like, stashing your yarn away. I'm like, oh, God.
Like a hoarder. Or... It makes me think of drugs,
It
honestly.
does. It's like, where's your stash?
Yeah, which, I mean, I think we should give it a new name. I think we should call it our collection.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Our
What would you call it?
I don't know. Our stock. I don't know.
I like that stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I say controversial because I feel like there's a lot of memes out there about, there's the meme that I hate, which is like, oh, I'm gonna buy more yarn behind my husband's back and kind of thing, which is, I don't know about your husband, but mine has no idea how much yarn I have. And maybe because I hide it. Maybe.
You're like, I hate that. This meme is true.
No, and also it's more like he knows this is my hobby or this is like something I like. So it's like, well, I have the things that I like. Why can't you have the things that you like? But I don't like that idea of like the stash being something to be ashamed of or a bad thing. Even though I sometimes also get that feeling of like I shouldn't buy more yarn. I have yarn at home.
Yeah. I definitely. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But we do buy it, and I think we do have stashes, and it's worth talking about. So, yeah, what is your relationship with your stash? I would say
My relationship. I like having options already at home to start a project when I finish a project. I find that I get super excited about finishing a project and like super excited about starting a new one, and I tend to sort of that enthusiasm just carries me through a massive like part of the next project. I used to like to have a couple of options, but I definitely have like 20-ish projects worth of yarn at home, and I have them in an order in my Ravelry queue, but I just end up sort of jumping into whatever my mood strikes at the moment. The other aspect is being in Australia, a lot of the yarns, if I need to order from Wool Warehouse or from the States or sometimes even from a different state in Australia, can take from a few days to a few weeks to arrive. So I find that if I don't have something ready to go, I kind of end up putting my knitting down for a little bit while I'm waiting for stuff to arrive. And then knowing my luck, I won't even be interested in whatever has arrived. Anymore. So I really like having the flexibility of having options ready to go at home. I have yarns ready to go. I tend to not buy patterns before I'm ready to knit them because I still give myself freedom to change my mind if I want to use the yarn for something else. But I usually tend to have yarns attached to at least projects in my mind that, okay, I'm going to make this pattern with this yarn. And then later if I find a pattern that works better and I'm like, oh, actually maybe I'll use that yarn for this one, then I just change it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty smart. Because I definitely also buy yarn with a project in mind, and there has been times, like even the shirt that I'm wearing, like I bought this yarn with a bunch of others thinking that I was gonna make the shifty sweater, and then I started and I just didn't like the colors. No, I like the sweater, but the colors I chose once they were the way they were knitted just didn't work, and so I switched it up. And yeah, it's good to like have enough, but in my case, just because I mean my place looks big from in the video, but it's small, and I don't have a lot of storage space, so I have to be like mindful of how much yarn I bring into my apartment and where I'm gonna keep it. And yeah, like I don't really have like one. I know some people have like one dresser or some like a shelf or something. Yeah, or like a specific place where you keep your yarn and display it, right? Some people. I don't. I have a basket over here. I have something in the closet. I have in a bag. Like I just like everywhere. And I, like you said, I know exactly where it is. I know where. Although there was one time that I knit a cardigan and I ran out of yarn, and I was like, I was sure that I had another skein, but I couldn't find it. And then months later, I found it, and I was like, oh no. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I have 20 projects of yarn ready. Maybe like 6-ish. And then I also have yarn that is either leftover from projects or yarn that is gifted to me, which is like a whole other thing we can go into
later.
The eternal question of what are we going to do with the scraps?
Yes, the scraps. Yeah, what do you do with your scraps?
It's such a problem because I definitely am more of a bigger project knitter. I don't tend to knit accessories too much. Mostly I just find them boring, but also like I'm not a person that tends to naturally gravitate to picking up a hat or picking up a pair of mittens and stuff. More and more recently, because it's starting to get surprisingly chilly in Sydney, but previously I just never was in the habit of picking up like a hat before I left the house, even in winter. Because I don't knit accessories as much, and I mostly use like non-superwash yarn, so I don't tend to make gifts out of those. I do nothing. I am doing nothing with my scraps, so I'm thinking of doing a blanket next year.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, have you made a blanket yet?
No, I haven't. I want to start one, but I'm also like making an advent kind of for me and my friend. Like I'm buying yarns from Holst, so part of the blanket's going to be new yarn. And I'll like pepper in some of my I'll pepper in some of my stash, and then if I really enjoy making it, I can always make more blankets with the yarn I have.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think even I've been trying to stash bust, as they call it, like trying to find things, especially those like leftover skeins that is like 1.5. You're like, what do I make with this? And I always end up buying more.
To get the color.
I did make to get the color right, or maybe it's like color work, and so you use that one for the color work, but then you need the rest of it.
And you don't want multiple stuff in the same colors anyways. That's, I think, the problem. So I don't want
in the exact same color.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the thing I find about buying for projects useful is that you don't end up with too much leftovers, as opposed to, I guess, people who just buy like an estimate sweater quantity. But a sweater quantity for like a stockinette crop jumper versus a big cable jumper is so different. So I find that I don't end up with as much leftovers than I would if I just would estimate like, oh, I need maybe this much, but what if I want to knit a cable jumper, so maybe I'll buy extra, and then I just end up having way more yarn than I need.
Yeah, that was like one thing that I learned, because I honestly don't go to yarn stores a lot for many reasons. First of all, Pearl Soho closed, and Pearl Soho was my favorite one to go in person.
Tragic.
And yeah, I mean, you can still buy it, but it was really nice store, and I love it. And it was, it was very accessible for where it was in Manhattan. So now I can't go, and a lot of them are in Brooklyn. I live in Queens, and I mean, this is like a geography thing, but it's basically like too far, and I don't. It's not worth it. So, like, I would like to support a local yarn store, but I just busy New Yorker life. I like barely have time to eat, so. I don't so I order online a lot, which I know you do too, because I imagine in Australia there isn't tons of
we have yarn
stores.
stores. I find Sydney does not have as many. We're slowly starting to get more options in there as well. But like even yarn stores that hold certain lines from yarns from overseas, they might not have all the colors, or they might not have all the stocks. I usually tend to order for a couple of projects at a time. So for me, buying a couple of projects plus shipping ends up being still cheaper than buying from here. For smaller projects, like I definitely also want to support local yarn stores, but I cannot make myself spend more money than I know I could somewhere most of the times. But it depends. It depends on the yarn and the situation. If I tend to go in, then I'm like, ooh,
For me, it's like if I go to a store or if I go to a festival where there's yarn everywhere, I get overwhelmed and I almost get locked. Like I don't like. There's so many decisions that I can't make one, type of thing. So it helps me that if I think, okay, I have these 3 projects or 4 projects, whatever. Maybe if I see something that I really like, and then I try to find for it.
Or if you sort of have projects in mind, you can also buy when stuff is on sale.
Yeah. Wait for the sale, and there's a few sales going on right now, which I'm not gonna talk about because they're not giving me money.
I don't have any money at the moment, so usually if someone tells me there's a sale, like I have to go look. It's such a bad habit.
What about do you ever buy yarn from independent dyers or that type of thing? Do you
I do.
like the drop?
I used to go for knit nights at one of our hand dyers here in Sydney called Three Cats Yarns at her studio. She used to have knit nights, and when I'm in there, and it happened to coincide exactly when I started knitting socks. So we would get like 10% off during the knit night. So I ended up getting a couple of skeins from there. Or when I go to markets, I really like going to markets. It's like great being in like the community. They're definitely smaller here than most of the stuff you guys like I've seen up there. But when I go in, then I keep an eye out. I'm not like the biggest hand-dyed fan visually, but I do get a couple of stuff here and there. Even at markets, though, I still find myself being gravitated to like the small farm, like non-superwash, like interesting fiber yarns. But I do occasionally get hand-dyed, yeah.
I wonder because I know that there's a lot of people that are like really devoted fans of certain specific yarn dyers and they wait for the drop.
Yeah, that's the thing that is not that common here, doing the pre-order stuff. Even the, like they will do like drops where the, Etsy shop will be open or whatever the version of their like online platform, selling platform is. But kind of the pre-order stuff, I haven't heard of it too much here. I only know a couple of dyers who did it for like a special collab type thing. Probably more to get an estimate of how many they should dye.
How much to dye, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like, the big people in the States that I keep hearing about, Woolberry and Sorella and stuff with their pre-orders. Yeah, that's not quite a big thing here yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it depends on the person. Like, I love the yarn itself, and I love looking at it, but it gives, again, maybe I'm just such an anxious person. I'm like, I like don't know what I want this for, but I like it. And then it just I kind of lock and I don't buy anything because it's like the decision.
I get very irritated when I know it's like making it exclusive and like blah blah blah, like even Newton's like sales tactic of having drops, Patreons, blah blah blah. I find it so annoying. I'm like, if you're going to make it hard for me to get your product, I'm not going to get your product. There's so many other yarns I want to try. I am never going to be the one who like puts on an alarm at like 3 in the morning or whatever lines up with the time overseas and go. And I'm like, no way. So I get very agitated by these kind of marketing tactics. I'm like, don't make it hard for me to buy your yarn, please. And then I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think for me, yeah, it's kind of like there's some stress or anxiety about it that also I don't like.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you have to buy it right now. And I'm like, okay, but can I wait until I pay my credit card? You know? Or until, or if you have like several projects going on and I don't want to think about what the next one is right now, can I like wait until I finish and then decide? Yeah. Speaking of patterns, do you stash patterns, or you were saying that you only buy patterns if it's gonna be?
I most of the time only buy patterns right before I knit it. Sometimes, very occasionally, if the pattern goes on sale and I know I want to make it, I'll buy it like over Christmas or whatever. But that's very rare. Like I can't even think of like 5 patterns that I've bought like that. So I tend to buy when I'm ready to knit.
Yeah, and if it happens to be that I'm just asking this because I'm thinking about pattern releases, and it's similar to the yarn drops where like,
yeah,
you know, people release patterns, and obviously as a designer you're like, your hope is that people will buy it, but at the same time I'm thinking like, you know, people will save it and they will buy it when they're ready, and that's okay.
Buy patterns knit patterns when they're trendy. I'm always like 2 years behind. I'm like, oh, I want to make this, but I have other things to make, and I don't tend to dress by the fashion cycle anyways. So I'll come to patterns later. I do that with movies and TV as well, and it drives my husband insane. Like I will watch stuff 2 years after it came out, and I'm like, what? So I'm the same with patterns. I will knit stuff like years after it was, you know, trendy and everyone was knitting it. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. The one thing I do stash, I gotta say, about regarding patterns are, because, you know, I'm really into vintage patterns, and those I do. A lot of them are free. Like if they're very old, usually you can, or very, like you can buy like for, I don't know, $3, you can buy like a whole book of vintage patterns. So I will stash those, and I barely needed like I have so many and I barely needed them because they tend to be it's a little more work. You have to think about you have to find yarn that kind of works with it because they're all gone. Yeah, and so I don't know, I feel like it's more like mental investment, so I don't need them as fast, but I do save.
Even those patterns, they tend to make you think more with their style of writing. At the same time. At the same time. I'm like, I can't keep track of these many things at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. There's like too many things to keep track of. I feel like people say a lot that buying yarn, and I would say buying patterns, sometimes is like a separate hobby of its own.
I see.
Yeah. But let's talk also about gifted yarn, because I'm sure you get yarn gifted.
Not as much as not really.
For friends and family, or like.
No, I've never had anyone say, "Oh, I have all this, you know, leftover yarn or whatever." Like never. Should I be offended?
How about like no? How about for like your birthday or?
Oh, I just tend to ask for what I want. I'm like, sometimes I even just buy it and give it to my husband, and I'm like, here you go, you can give it back to me, and I'll be all like it comes in the
gift bag.
No, I'm not that crazy. Can you imagine if I like put a like bow on it? I'm like, to the best wife in the whole world. No, it like I'll get it shipped, and I will still leave it in its like shipping parcel bag. And I'm like, here you go. I'm like, I won't open it, as if I don't already know what's inside.
Like, opening it is half of the fun. I gotta say.
I'll let him like open it and package it, and then me actually open it and be like, ooh. I don't tend to get gifted surprise yarns. My in-laws are the kind of family that do like a what would you like for Christmas, which is super convenient. So I'll just ask them,
Yeah.
either like, I tend to ask them not to buy yarn itself, just in case they get the quantity and stuff wrong, but maybe gift cards. I got a Swift off of them last year for Christmas, or pattern books. That's what I usually tend to ask, like the Lina ones, or what's her name, Marie Wallen, like those kind of books are usually what I tend to ask for Christmas. Have I actually knit out of any of them yet? No, but it's on the list.
But they look nice on the shelf.
They do. It's great for inspiration and stuff, and I've started saving in like a Ravelry bundle all the patterns I have at home already, and I tend to, if I'm looking for something to buy for, if I'm looking to, find a project to knit, I will try and go through those first and see if there's anything on there that I want to make, which there usually is, but they end up needing like yarn, and I don't want to like buy for even more projects, so let's see. Yeah, but I'm trying to get into the habit of looking at patterns I already have, especially for gift knits.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea, because if you have them on Ravel, I feel like if they're on your shelf, you forget what even is in there. Yeah.
Or to even think of like, oh, what weight yarn was that jumper out of that book like? So I just have them all saved I use a lot of Ravelry for my stash and pattern organization.
I feel like you should make a template or something. I wish there was a way of making like a Ravelry template and just be like, how do I copy this into mine?
I know, right? I don't know. Like I input all my yarn in as well. In the beginning, of course, when I first started doing it, I had to sit and input them all in. But now, as soon as I buy a yarn, I just input it in along with the quantity, and then I weigh my leftovers after a project and input that in, and Ravelry automatically tells you what yardage you used, as well as like what yardage is left of the yarn that I have, which is really, really helpful when I'm trying to find yarns to do like not scrap projects, like the occasional accessories, or if I'm trying to use different yarns, then I don't need to be like, do I have enough of this one? Like it's all weighed in there. So I find the stash I tend to use that more as a stash than my physical stash itself. So in my old place, I had a spare room that was my half like crafting space, half my husband's home gym. In the new place, he has his own home. We moved into a 3-bedroom house recently, and currently we don't have a walk-in wardrobe like built in properly yet. It's just empty, so we're using the cupboards in the spare rooms for our wardrobes, which would be where I would put my yarn. So all my yarn is in suitcases, like 2 big suitcases, and like a few boxes. And I have never found my Ravelry stash more helpful than right now, where I don't want to open my suitcase and rifle through it each time I'm like thinking of, should I use this, should I use that? Like I know where all the yarns are. So if I'm like, oh, I want to knit this one next, but I use my digital stash more as a browsing tool than like browsing through the actual yarns itself. I don't even really look at it unless I'm going in there to put leftovers away or to pull the next project out.
Take something out.
Yeah. So I find it really, really helpful to use the Ravelry.
That's awesome. I definitely don't know. I mean, I've taken pictures and input things, but I just forget when I buy new yarn. I totally forget. So I have to get in that habit, because yeah, I think especially the weigh-in at the end, I don't do that either. I just like, I have this bag and I just put it in there and close it and forget about it, and then later like, I'll wait later. Or
because I'm so annoying with like my Ravelry. Even my projects, I tend to catalog them by the year. Like there's an option where you can put a tag in, and then you can make a little like, what would you call it? Like a little offshoot on your project pages with like a tag, and then you click on it, it shows all your like 2021 projects, 2022 projects. So I find like my favorite part of finishing a project is actually going onto my Ravelry, clicking it as like completed, and then I put the tag in 2023, and then I like weigh the yarn and I enter it in, and then I go to the 2023 page and I'm seeing like how many kilometers of yarn I've used. Like the way I even finished like this little hat, and then I entered the yarn in and I'm looking at it as if the hat used so much yarn. You know, I'm like, girl, it's not jumped up that much, but I'm like, ooh, I've used like 18 kilometers of yarn this year or whatever. So I find like looking at that scale is like looking at the number of how many kilometers I've used this year, like really motivating. Like it makes me enter stuff in.
It's like you're gamifying knitting.
I am gamifying my Ravelry.
That's great, because I think I see it more as a chore. I'm like, okay, I know this is helpful, but just wanna I just want to start the next thing, and I don't want to think about my own projects anymore.
I tend to enter everything, like any modifications I make on, just because I use so many people's Ravelry projects as a way if I'm lost on a pattern, or if I'm confused, or if I'm like, oh, I actually read through projects of patterns that I'm thinking of making to see what people are saying about if there's any like common issues with construction or common issues with something. So I'm like, I find it so useful, so I should enter it. Even though I do no modifications, there's nothing to enter. I'm like, as pattern.
Wow. I mean that's it's a great thing too, because like you said, you're thinking about other people needing it because you see that being done, and I definitely do that too. I mean, not write it. I don't write anything ever, almost.
I almost
but
never have anything to write. I'm not gonna lie. But when I do write.
yeah, no, that's great. I think I need to do my Ravelry game, make it better, because it seems so useful, and I think it's a tool. When I started using Ravelry, I found it so, I don't know, like confusing and complicated, convoluted.
The older style is so clunky as well. Even the current one is a bit clunky. I still find it a bit hard to use. I'm used to it now.
It's not like super. Yeah, I'm used to it too, but it's not like the most user friendly. I mean,
it's not intuitive. It's not like, oh, this is what, I don't know. I find it quite confusing sometimes. I know how to use the features I use, but I like other stuff, I don't know how to use it.
Yeah. There are things that I'm like, I have like all the forums and stuff. I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah, but I think it's a really powerful tool once you start.
It makes me like, I hear people who do other hobbies saying, oh, I wish I had something like it's such a database of, even if you want to look at all the other stuff that a designer's, designed, or even the yarn database. When I bought yarn secondhand or anything, you can find the yarn on there. It will tell you exactly what it is. You can look down and all the different colorways will be there already, because people have already stashed it. So even if I don't know what the color is, I can find it or whatever. It's such a useful tool.
Have you ever bought yarn there? From someone's stash?
I've bought it off, there's this Ravelry group called Australian Knitters something. But they tend to put yarn and other crafting stuff on for sale on the forum. I don't think I've ever actually, I mean, I do at work. I sound like a psycho. I do at work go to the search and stash option and like look at all the yarns that people in Australia have listed for resale, just as a hobby. Just as a time, like I read the news and then I look at the Ravelry stashes. That's just what I do at lunch. But I don't think I've ever actually asked anyone on there being like, hi, no.
Okay.
But when people have put their yarn up for sale on the forum, I have. I bought Newton secondhand there. I buy a lot of yarn off these stashes on Ravelry actually. Yeah.
I've only ever. Have you sold yarn or no?
No.
Okay, not.
No, I haven't. Because I buy for projects and I intend to make them, and I'm quite flexible with it, I don't find that I don't like a yarn anymore. The only stuff I would maybe consider selling was if I had full, like, extra spare balls from...
Yeah.
But I don't really tend to have those too often, so...
I also have never sold, but I definitely... There was a project where I bought the yarn, but they were out. Like, they only had, I don't know, 3 skeins, and I needed more. And so I went to Ravelry, and I found the exact, like, lot code, like, everything. It was like the extra skein. I think I bought 2 from different people. Like, I literally it was like, does anyone have this? And they did, and it ended up being cheaper because it was Pearl Soho yarn. And I was able to finish my project. So yeah.
I've had people message me asking if the yarn I have in my stash, and I was like, no. Like, if I was finished with it, maybe I would give my leftovers. I have given, like, almost... There's this yarn company here called Bendigo Woolen Mills. They do huge, like, 200-gram balls of yarn. And I had used one yarn as, like, their color changing yarn as in color work to do... It makes it look like I put in more effort than I did. But I had almost, like, I don't know, 150 grams of it left, and I remember somebody being like, hi, I'm done. I was like, take it. So I have sold before, now that I think about it. But when people ask me for yarns that are not marked for sale, this one wasn't really marked for sale, but still, and I'm like, no. And one time this lady, like, sent me the longest sob story asking if she could buy this yarn. And she was like, this is the only... I'm knitting something for my one family member in it, and then I have another family member who's really unwell and old, and this is the only yarn that she... I was like, don't try to emotionally blackmail me into selling my yarn. I was like, I'm so sorry. Because I had found that on a D-stash already. It's this yarn that's out of stock. Bendigo tends to come out with, like, limited editions for a little bit. It's actually so annoying. That's the one yarn company that I'm like, oh, like, I just buy sometimes without thinking of what pattern I want. They're quite an economical yarn, so it doesn't feel like I'm splurging.
What's the brand again?
They're called Bendigo Woolen Mills. Like, they're woolen mills here, and they sell 200-gram balls. They tend to be between $16 or $17 for 200-gram balls. So I don't tend to feel...
Oh, wow.
I know. It's really good. But they come out with limited editions, and I'm like, God damn. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the theme of this podcast today is we don't like limited editions.
Oh, I don't like limited editions.
Just make your yarn available all year long, please.
Bendigo, listen to me. I went there when I went to the Bendigo Yarn Festival, and I was on the verge of, like, who makes decisions? I going and holding their face and being like, listen, please just leave them on for a little bit, yeah?
I demand to speak with the manager.
In their, like, busiest week of the year, I'm like, who's the manager? I need to have a word.
Oh my gosh. So I had another question that maybe now knowing more about your process of buying yarn, probably, maybe not, but do you have a skein or yarn in your stash that you might never use, or that you like, it's so special and you're like, I don't know what to use this for?
I got a skein of Noro Kakigori last year for Christmas, planning to make a tank top. And the way I keep yo-yoing between different tank top patterns, I don't know when I'm ever going to make it. I thought I would immediately cast it on, but I'm like, do I want to make this tank top? It has to be perfect. Do I want to make that tank top? So I do have special yarns. I have another sweater quantity of yarn from Mel, who's the designer behind, the owner behind Three Cat Yarns that I was talking about earlier, and she gave me 3 skeins of any color from her shop for my birthday, which was very, very generous.
So nice.
I know. And that yarn, I'm like, must be perfect. And I have another fade set as well that I'm like, must be perfect. So I'm like yo-yoing between. I don't know. I assume I'll eventually knit them. But it has to be the perfect pattern. I find it's hard to find, like, 4-ply patterns with as much texture and detail that I like to knit, like in one color, because I think if you start doing, like, cabling and stuff in 4-ply, it's a lot of knitting. It's probably not the most, I don't know, helpful for designers in number of sales, I guess, if they do like very complicated 4-ply patterns. So I'm finding it hard to find 4-ply patterns, the kind I want.
Wait, hold on. What is full ply?
Fingering weight.
Oh, okay. Fingering. Okay.
Yeah. Both the Fate set and the 3 skeins of yarn I have are fingering weight, and I'm finding it hard to find some sort of textural, interesting pattern that would look good in the Fate set or that would look good in that yarn that's also in fingering weight. Yeah. So if anyone has any suggestions, throw them my way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is fingering, and it's like mostly stockinette. I don't know.
Yeah. That's from Fable Knitwear, right?
It's from Fable, yeah. And like I love her because they're always like very simple but elegant, and it's always like a little something. Like here is the sleeves that make it special, and like maybe the little like shoulder.
I used to love watching her podcasts, and she stopped doing them.
I didn't know she had a podcast.
Back in the day. She had a few. I really loved watching them, and then she stopped doing them, and I was sad.
I just love her style and like her patterns.
Yeah, because you like vintage knitting. Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's like the best of both worlds. You get the look as well as the sort of ease of a more modern knitting pattern.
More modern. Yeah, for sure. But what you're saying, I think I feel the same way. Like I love looking at the yarn that is like the hand dyed or like the different color, but then I'm like, what am I gonna make?
I know.
And
it's usually the hand dyed yarn I tend to get stuck on as well.
Yeah, because you have to. Yeah, it's like an extra thing to think about. Like it's not just.
And it's a bigger purchase. Like it's usually more expensive. I usually only buy it as a special occasion thing, so I'm like, it has to be perfect.
All right. Well, that was a great conversation. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for
I had
having
fun.
me.
Now I have to go and fix my Ravelry because it's a lot of work to do.
If you guys are waiting for a sign to add stuff into Ravelry stash, this is it.
This is your sign. But thank you, Ira, for joining. If you want to plug your stuff, like, go ahead and tell us where we can find you.
Well, I'm on Ravelry, obviously. I have...
you should follow her there.
Yes, you should add me. I actually really like going through the Friends tab in Ravelry where it shows you all of your friends' updates. And I love seeing what patterns people are favoriting, like what yarns they're stashing. I'm such a Ravelry stalker, so please still be friends with me on there. And I also have a little YouTube podcast under KukieKnits, and you can catch me there as well as on Instagram. Same name, KukieKnits. We're very creative out here.
I will post the links below. But thank you again. I hope you have a great weekend.
Yes,
for you,
it's Saturday morning. The sun is out. I'm up early, so I might actually get some stuff done. Win-win.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm gonna go to bed.
Good night.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and happy making. Thanks for joining us.